We're all eating dinner, and I say, I got to use the bathroom. I went to the bathroom, and I never came back. I ended up leaving the resort. I ended up going to a bar.
Strip club?
It was a strip club. I'm in a strip club.
That's what I'm saying. Let's keep it like 100 for everybody. So
I'm in a
not
strip
only
club.
did you just leave your wife on the honeymoon, but you're at a strip club.
Every time I turn on my phone or the TV, it feels like the world's falling apart. The news is full of chaos, and if that's all you ever see, it's easy to believe everything's just getting worse. But that's not what I'm seeing behind the scenes. In real life, in our communities, I'm watching God move like I've never seen before. I've seen lives restored, churches growing, revival happening at business events, people stepping out in faith, and God giving dreams and visions, calling people to rise up and make a difference. And that's why I started Transforming Communities, because I want to show you what God is actually doing right now. I want to introduce you to my friends, people who are stepping up, taking risks, and transforming their cities for the kingdom. So if you're tired of bad news and you've been wondering if God still moves, He does, and these stories prove it. To support what we're doing and to hear more stories like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to be notified every time a new podcast drops, just click the bell icon next to the subscribe button. With that being said, let's jump into the Transforming Communities podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Helping Captives. You know, it's crazy how many people don't realize that human trafficking isn't just somewhere else. It happens right here in our own communities. Helping Captives is a faith-based anti-trafficking organization that exists to provide freedom, hope, and opportunity to survivors of sex trafficking across the United States. They do this through their different services such as emergency and stabilization, 24/7 around-the-clock care, professional counseling, and much more. If you're a survivor of sex trafficking and need help, or you're wanting to support a survivor's journey, take the first step at helpingcaptives.org. That's helpingcaptives.org. Welcome back to the Transforming Communities podcast. Today I got to sit down with one of my really good friends, Ike Whitaker. Ike is a former Division I quarterback who played for Virginia Tech before continuing his professional career in the Canadian Football League. After football, he moved into entrepreneurship and is now the owner of Whitaker Family Furniture. It's a thriving family business built on integrity, excellence, and service. But Ike's journey has been marked by significant personal battles. At just 6 years old, he experienced sexual assault, a deep wound that shaped years of internal conflict and pain. As an adult, Ike struggled with addiction, a battle that slowly overtook every part of his life. During his honeymoon, he even left his wife to go to a strip club in the grip of that addiction. What followed were years of relapse, heartbreak, and searching for a way out. But Ike's story is ultimately one of redemption. Through the steadfast love of his wife Rachel, the hard work of recovery, and the healing power of Jesus, Ike found real freedom and restoration. Today, he's a devoted husband, a father, and a business owner, and he's a living testimony that no matter how deep the darkness, God can rebuild what's been broken and bring a man back to life. We went pretty in depth into Ike's story, and because of that, we have separated his podcast into 2 parts for you. With that being said, here's part 2 with Ike Whitaker. And Rachel's got no clue who you really are, and she's on her honeymoon. And for people that know, I don't think Rachel really even dated. I mean, there was lots of guys that wanted to be with Rachel, but she was waiting. And so for her, I mean, that must have been a very devastating situation.
Yeah. Still to this day, you know, when she talks about it, it is, I mean, she waited, like you said. You know, she waited her whole life for this moment that was completely ripped out from her without her control. And so there's really no words that could fill that place, right? It's still a place where now she is, obviously we're past that place, but that place is what every woman dreams of, that moment. That's why they spend all the money on the dress, from the dress to the mirror to that night of dancing and you name it. And I ruined it, you know? And so for her to recover from that moment is only an act of God. It's only a miracle. And so
What does relapse look like? Did you just drink on the honeymoon? Like, let's get real. What does relapse really look like?
I was not a functional alcoholic.
Okay.
Not at all, man. When I start, there is no stop button. And so we were at, I suck at pronouncing this. It is Puerto Vero.
Something, bro.
Somewhere, right? In Mexico.
Yeah.
I was there.
So you're in Mexico. Let's just keep it there.
I'm in Mexico. And we get off the plane. My dad bought us a all-inclusive trip to Mexico for our honeymoon. So I don't even know alcohol is being served. I have no recollection of not only served, but it's free.
Okay.
So when we get there, there's people with a big sign that says, "Congratulations, Whitakers." And they have a tray of tequila shots. And at first, I'm overprotective of myself and Rachel. I'm like, no way. We don't drink. We don't want that. We don't drink. We're good. We hop in a taxi. They take us to the resort. This whole time in a taxi, I'm sweating because I feel my palms and I'm like, this is an all-inclusive. Alcohol is free. I'm already feeling insecure. Wow. I'm feeling insecure about everything. The first time, I'm feeling insecure about, do I have what it takes? I'm feeling insecure. And I'm like, I started having these thoughts. Maybe I could drink and her not know. So what happens is I start.
And it's different because the other girls you've been with, you don't love them. It's not their first time.
Sure. And they're drinking. Rachel's not drinking.
Yeah. Okay.
Rachel's not like, hey, you're on a honeymoon. Let's drink.
Yeah.
No.
Got it.
I even tried to offer Rachel a drink. She denied it because I'm thinking like, okay, if I can get her to maybe take a drink, I can maybe hide this more. And so I escaped, which was it seemed normal. Hey, Rachel's changing. We're about to go down to the pool. Rachel, I'm going to go order us some food. I'm going to go check out the scene. I'll be right downstairs. I snuck away. I started drinking. And I was able to play it off for a little bit. I started taking shots. Now I'm in the pool. And Rachel's thinking she's married the greatest man alive. I'm smiling. I'm jumping up and down. I'm talking to everyone. I'm playing volleyball. I get Rachel in the pool. She's playing. And these were the beginning stages where you can play it off. That didn't last because alcoholism, or however you want to frame it, it needs more. And so every hour I'm escaping. I'm giving Rachel a reason. I got to go to the restroom. And every bar, no matter where I'm at in the hotel, there's many bars. I can go to the opposite side of the resort and still get a drink and take it to my room or put it on my room. So here I am. Rachel doesn't know I'm drinking yet. I'm escaping every chance I get to drink more, and she doesn't know it. Then the nighttime comes. We're eating with a random family. So through my drunkenness, I find out I get a family. We're all eating dinner, and I say, I got to use the bathroom. I went to the bathroom, and I never came back. I ended up leaving the resort. I ended up going to a bar, club, and I ended up drinking there. I'm in a blackout.
A strip club?
It was a strip club.
Okay.
I'm in a strip club.
That's what I'm saying. Let's keep it like 100 for everybody. So not only did you just leave your wife on the honeymoon, but you're at a strip club. Yeah.
All my money was taken. I owe this place over $1,000 I owe. Rachel's at the resort by herself, and she's freaking out.
And she don't know where you went.
She's calling my mom. She's calling everybody. She's freaking out. 6:30 in the morning, Rachel gets in a vehicle because she's like, hey, where's my husband? She's talking to the people downstairs. And one of the taxi drivers says, I know where he's at. Because I'm tall, I'm a black brother. I'm like, okay, she's describing how I look.
Yeah.
And this taxi driver, she gets in the car.
You're in Mexico, so you stand out a lot.
I'm in Mexico.
Yeah.
I stand out. And so Rachel gets in the car with this taxi driver, and the taxi driver takes her right to me. And Rachel taps me. I see Rachel, and everything in me just sinks to my stomach. I go back. I would like to tell you my drinking stops. It doesn't. I'm in full-blown alcoholism mode. And so what should have been 7 nights, 8 days, we get back to Spokane after 4 days of being on our honeymoon. And we come back early. It's an absolute mess. It's a mess.
Yep.
We have to face her dad, and all he can do was cry. He wanted to kill me. Instead of killing me, he cried. And it was a mess. I got into treatment, I think, a week and so after that. And so the first month of Rachel's marriage, I am belligerent on our honeymoon. I get back to Spokane. She was obviously devastated. She wants nothing to do with me. I'm trying to figure out how to get help. So there's people in our life that can get me immediate help. And so I choose that immediate help. And from that point, it was 5 years in and out of addiction and marriage.
What is, just out of curiosity, so I've got you and a couple other buddies of mine that when you drink, they've explained it to me. For me, it's like marijuana. So I can't be around it. If I smoke any weed, I immediately turn into an old me. I feel every demon that left me trying to get back in. Is that kind of what it's like for you when you drink? Because I've never struggled with having a drink and blacking out before. So is that what it's like?
I think there's a combination. I see a lot of people's lives, and if there's this issue, I totally understand it, because it's like you see your potential, but you see you not living in that potential. So with drinking, for me, anytime I chose to throw in the towel, it was never fun. It was never, I'm going to go party. I'm in a hotel drinking myself into a coma, because my alcoholism that was the manifestation of sexual addiction. It was, how do I live with the fact that I'm at a furniture store, I work at a furniture store, someone who looks good walks in and I'm hiding my ring. That's my addiction. Alcohol was covering up for who I actually become. So if I ended up in a hotel drinking, it was because there was sexual addiction prior to that. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And so alcohol, when I was drinking, it was never to just have a few beers. It was to forget who I'd become.
So that's what happens when you're in Mexico. You start drinking, then you're like, I want to just forget.
I have to,
because you're almost like ashamed of what.
I'm ashamed. Okay. I am filled with insecurity and emptiness. I married the girl of the church. I married the girl who waited. I married the girl who did it the right way. I married the girl who didn't date guys and hook up with them to see if they wanted to stay with them. I married Rachel. So now, because I know that I don't know how to give her in return what she so faithfully committed to me, I'm having a hard time wrestling with, do I have what it takes? And the answer is absolutely no. I don't. And so if I would have communicated that before, does Rachel marry me? Maybe not. That's my fear. If I don't lie about who I am, if I don't pretend I'm something that I'm not, which I learned how to do for 20 years, I learned how to do it through gifts and abilities. And not a lot of people stopped and said, hey, bro, I don't want you because you don't have any character. So they attached themselves to me for what I can do for them, not for who I was. And so that's
now you're
life.
getting married and there's no hiding it.
Now I'm married and there's no hiding. And so not only did I crush Rachel, I'm crushed. The church is crushed. Everyone that knows Rachel is crushed.
Yeah.
And so now I have this weight of how do I clean up?
That was a hard season, brother.
Yeah.
For a lot of people.
Yeah.
That was hard to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so how do you clean that up?
Yeah.
How do you, like, my family's not here.
Yeah.
I don't have a shoulder it felt like to cry on. It was hard. I literally had to disconnect.
Well, and then
from,
99% of people are in her corner.
Yeah.
Because she's Rachel.
She's Rachel.
Yeah.
And it's not because they hated me. They didn't know how to. All they see is Rachel and her sobbing and her hurt. And I have experience of one of Rachel's friends taking advantage of her because Rachel wanted to help someone. This is kind of a side rabbit trail, but it's Rachel decided to pay for one of her friends' cell phone bill who was dealing with addiction. This friend decided to save Rachel's card information and use the money for something else. Rachel told me, and I wanted to get the cops at that person's house immediately. We're talking about a phone bill that costs $50. Rachel's family and her friends in the church, here's a man that committed himself to Rachel and left her in Mexico by herself to try to survive. So the weight of what people in Rachel's life felt, I never, to this day, tried to comprehend that. That's not my place. They were hurt, and they didn't know how to not see Rachel's hurt.
Sure.
And so I thank God for Jim Anderson, because Jim Anderson protected me and said, this community right now doesn't know how to help you. And if you come in this community right now, you're going to have to go back into performance mode. So I had to leave that community to try to find an identity outside of who Rachel was. And that was one of the hardest things I've had to do in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not in Maryland, and you have no relationships up here.
Yeah.
You're in Spokane. Let's be honest, you're like one of 3 black dudes.
Right. Yeah.
in the area.
I'm in Spokane, and
Yeah. I'm trying to think, because for the next 5 years, man, you were trying, then you would relapse, and then you'd go into this ministry, and then you go to that one. How many ministries in what we would call like rehabilitation ministries did you go through in 5 years? And what was that cycle like? Because Rachel's been through things that most women in most marriages just don't survive. And so I'm curious to, like, what was that cycle like, and what do you think gave her the strength to stay? Right. Because that was something that I think the whole community was watching, is you gave her so many opportunities to leave you, and she stayed. And what did you learn watching her fight for your marriage?
Yeah. So your first question was the number of different ministries and rehabilitation centers, and there's 5 or 6 that I could think of right now just in Spokane, from the Union Gospel Mission, the Dream Center, Victory Outreach.
All great ministries.
I was in amazing ministries where these were all stepping stones to who I am today. There's things that I gained from each of those places. That 5 years of the roller coaster was my coming to understand what I was trying to unravel 20 years of living a certain way, like 20 years. And I think about, there's a book called Every Man's Battle. Yeah. And it says, if you struggle with pornography before you get married, you're still going to struggle in your marriage. Every man says, there's no way. I have my wife. I can have sex with my wife. Why would I ever struggle with pornography? I felt like these 20 years of living a certain way. I mean, in and out of relationships. Never been in a relationship more than a year. Never was faithful in a relationship, ever, never. I got cheated on my freshman year, 9th grade year of high school, and I said I would never let this happen again. Okay. I made a vow, and I said I'm not going to let a woman take advantage of me like that. I gave my all. She cheated. Here we go. And so from that point forward, when I got married, the first 5 years of my marriage, even though I had the greatest intentions, I had the greatest desire to do better. I put myself in situations that I believe around certain individuals to help me become a husband and a father. I had to unlearn things that took me 20 years engraved into my DNA. Second nature. It was second nature to lie. It was second nature to wear a costume. It was second nature to say, I feel great. Guess what? Because I had to sign 100 autographs when I left my dorm, and I had to smile and act like I was a happy quarterback, and I didn't like my life. I was drinking myself to sleep as a starting quarterback at Virginia Tech in the sauna every morning at 5 a.m. just to sweat the alcohol out. That was my life. And so now I'm married. I've relapsed the first day of marriage, second day in Mexico. And so from the get-go, I had to go into performance. I had to try to get people to believe I was good enough for Rachel.
Okay, I can
And
see
it was
that.
very hard because it wasn't my pursuit was not, how can I get my relationship with God secure? It was, how can I keep Rachel? It wasn't my counselor's fault, but a lot of my counselors, their pursuit was, how can we get Ike better for Rachel? So who I was never the priority of healing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, especially just knowing Rachel and how loved she is
Right.
by the community.
And nobody would know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's
to
very
me.
hard to try to grasp, hey, let's
That
take Rachel out of the equation.
It would be like if you married Billy Graham's daughter.
Right.
Like she loved up here.
Right.
Yeah. That okay.
And
This makes sense to me.
There was this dual thing happening at the same time. So the first 5 years, which you stated, there was times, and I believe those years were needed because it was in those years that Rachel said, if Ike is willing to get help, I'll build a bridge.
Okay.
But she is not a pushover. I mean,
No.
my stuff was outside.
Yeah.
The door was locked. It's like, and so there was 3 years that I didn't step foot in my house. I was in an inpatient men's rehabilitation center for 3 years.
Yeah.
While my first daughter was born. So Rachel, she could tell you the story better than I can. It was the years that she waited before she got married that gave her the capacity to wait inside her marriage.
Wow.
It was those years that God gave her a word, and the word was, it's worth the wait. She thought that word meant it was worth 29 years of waiting until she got married. The word actually came to life in the context of my first 5 years of trying to figure out who I was in my marriage. She had to see me not as her husband, as a broken man. So at first this is my husband and he's treating me like this. He doesn't love me. He's leaving our marriage. He's trying to find fulfillment in other relationships. And he's telling me that he doesn't want to be married to me. This was her story.
Sure.
It wasn't until after a year or year two that she got the revelation that I can no longer see Ike as my husband. I have to see him as a broken man. And I actually have to separate from him as my husband, see him as someone that is broken in order to help him. So she was my greatest advocate when I was at Victory Outreach for 3 years.
Yeah.
When I was at the Union Gospel Mission for 8 months, and she's there like cheering me on. She's showing up like, hey, you can do this. We're writing letters. And so she committed to the process. And she would tell you it wasn't for me.
Okay.
It was not for Ike. It was because she committed to the Lord, and she knew through testimony that those kids will one day want their dad. Maybe she gets remarried. Maybe she has a husband. Maybe my kids have a dad, but it's not going to be their dad. She knew statistically, Ike, if God doesn't encounter him, he's going to fall into the statistic of every other Black young man that 7 out of 10 of them doesn't have a dad. She knew these things because she knew Jim Anderson. Mm-hmm. She knew, like, this choice doesn't have to do, this choice has little more to do with what I want out of my marriage, and it has more to do with breaking the generational curse. That was the call over our life. How we knew how we were going to get through it, it was day by day.
So she just feel like when she made a covenant with you at the altar, she was keeping that.
Yeah.
What did that do for you?
This is what it did for me. So it was 4 years ago now, almost 4 years ago exact, God encounters me in rehab. It was the first time I got real with God. And what I mean by that is I said, God, if you take my wife, if you take my kids, I'm okay with that. Just save my life. That night,
You think that's rock bottom for you?
that's rock bottom.
Okay.
Every other time, I'm still trying to figure out how to become a better husband. I'm trying to figure out how to become a better dad. And if you're listening to this, my number one piece of advice, if you're in a situation, is what you think you need to find fulfillment is not what you need. It's not. I thought if I can just become a better husband and a better dad, I won't ever drink again. I won't ever leave my marriage again. And that's not the truth. It wasn't until I got honest with God. I said, God, even if you don't give me these things that I've been trying to fight for, even if you don't grant me those things, please change me. And I felt I had an Abraham and Isaac moment. Abraham has waited 100 years to have Isaac. Isaac is born. God says, sacrifice your son. Every man is like, you're crazy. There's no way I'm going to sacrifice the very thing I've been waiting for. In this moment in rehab, I didn't know it, but when I said, God, you can have everything, and even if you don't give me these things back, I'm okay. I'm okay if you change me. I knew I was going to die. I was going to die because I wouldn't have been able to recover from Rachel leaving with my kids, her kids. This is the story of every man I know in my life. My dad, my granddad, my uncles, nobody stayed married. Here I am. It would have crushed me. So I said, God, change me. I'm not going to no longer follow you for what you can give me, for what you could do for me. And it was the most realest time because it's scary. Because what if God says, okay, I'm going to let Rachel move on. She's actually going to go through with a divorce, which at that time we were legally separated. So Rachel was making steps to say, hey, time is ticking. And so I'm in rehab. I have this encounter. And it was in that moment that God encountered me and he said these things. He said, if this woman loved you this much, how much more do you think I love you?
Wow.
And it was the pure gospel when I had nothing to offer that I knew I was valuable. I wasn't throwing a football. My family was gone. My kids were gone. I'm in a rehab. I got nothing to my name. And Rachel said, God says, if this woman could love you like this, how much more do you think I love you? And it was that. It was Rachel's yes to God that opened my heart to God to say, maybe he does love me. And that's what I needed. And it was literally from that point. And it gets tricky because people ask me, what was it? Why haven't you been backwards? It was that revelation. And it was Rachel's yes to God that God gave me. He encountered me, and it was the gospel. I had nothing to offer. If I was going to meetings every day, had a sponsor, working the steps, lead and celebrate recovery, this meeting with you today, Caleb, would be God encountered me, but I was going to meetings. I had my Bible open. I had a sponsor. I was working the steps. Brother, it was the gospel in its purest form. He did it for me without my permission. I don't deserve it. I had nothing to offer. That's it. And from that point is what Ike Whitaker needed, because anything other than that, I leave rehab and I try to earn God's love, earn his mercy, earn his grace, and you can't do it. And if you spend your time doing it, you're spinning wheels. And that was my life in Christianity. I show up at church. I put my fedora on. I knew when to jump. I knew when to talk. What I didn't know is that God really loved me despite me. And Rachel showed that time after time.
Dog, yeah. I mean, I think her ability to stay true to that covenant, even when everybody was telling her, hey, he's given you so many reasons and times to divorce, and her just saying, no, I'm going to stand on this. I think it really spoke to so many of us watching, because it impacted all of us, just watching the journey and seeing her faith. But something shifted in you, and every time you would go to rehab or you'd go to a ministry, it felt like you kind of were still in that performance base. I remember telling you when you went to the mission, I said, dude, I'm going to be really annoyed and angry at you if I see you on a billboard in 5 months. Cause I know that like you're just saying everything that you can say to get up there. But when was the real shift? Cause it seemed like every time you'd go to a church or a ministry, they'd immediately see the gift in you. And they'd throw you up on stage. Yeah. They'd give you a microphone. And then you went to a different church and they wouldn't do it. They did what Philip did to you. Yeah. But what was that like? What was the road for real recovery like? And how did you rebuild trust with Rachel?
Yeah. You know, man, I'm sitting here thinking while you're talking, he's not only faithful to do it like he did it in me, but he has someone in human flesh be that example for me too. And that's, you mentioned most of everybody was telling Rachel, hey, you have every right to leave. Mm-hmm. I would say 99.99999% of people said, they didn't suggest it. They said, you better, you need to. And they separated from her because she chose not to. And what happened?
Wait, you're saying there's people that have left her life because she wouldn't divorce you?
Yeah. So so that's changed now.
Sure.
Because it's been this time where they're seeing, not because we're wanting them to see, but they're seeing that her faithfulness to trust that if God did it in this ex-drug addict, this ex-gang member, this ex-Islam person, why can't God do it in Ike? Is God or is he not? Rachel, in her core, and it's probably through she's in love with movies like Schindler's
List.
Schindler's List. She still cries, like, because at the end of her life, if there's more to give, she didn't give enough. That's who I married. And so her faithfulness to God, to believe. And she had men like Jim Anderson that told her, watch testimonies. Rachel, she moved to North Carolina, away from family, away from the church she knew, away from people, away from her friends, to get another word from God. God, is this you saying stay? Or is this my flesh of what I think I need? Or I don't want to be single again. Will I ever get remarried? Is this you telling me to stay, God? She needed to hear from God again. So she watched testimonies about women who were in marriages for 20 years and their husband treat them like dogs. And these women say, I would do 20 years over again to get the last 10. And it's a famous pastor, and I'll remember it. It was a famous pastor. He's a famous pastor now, and his wife stuck in stage. She would see testimonies like this. And so to answer your question, Rachel wasn't a pushover. I had to walk this out. It wasn't like, oh, I accept you back and everything is great.
Okay.
It was, and there's something to that, because women are listening right now. They're probably sticking their nails. No, you need to show me all these things before I trust you again, because there's a place in that as well. But God sent us to Access Church. Pastor Toby and Patty, and Pastor Joel is the associate pastor. And when we got to this church, and to make it short, they said, sit your butt down and receive. We don't need you. I said, oh my goodness, what? And every week, this Pastor Toby, he would jokingly say, you're forgiven. And he wasn't just talking to me, he was talking to everyone in the middle of his messages. I'm like, man, this guy's a cornball. What does he mean you're forgiven? Like, stop his message and say, you're forgiven. And so it was these messages that I was hearing. Pastor Joel, his first sermon was, if there's any offense in you, you need to leave church right now. Basically saying, leave your gifts at the altar and go reconcile. Well, guess what, man? I had a lot of stuff and still in my heart. I had hurt from the church that I was at before. Like, bro, why couldn't you guys help me? Got 2,000 families in this church and I get pretty much kicked out of the church. Like, I was hurt. And it wasn't because they didn't love me. They didn't know how to help me. And they were able to explain that. But because I was still almost like a newborn baby, I couldn't take that rejection. So I was hurt. It was a root of offense that I would never have been effective in my marriage if I didn't deal with that. And so at the new church, it was, we don't need your gift. We value who you will become eventually if you stay long enough. And then Rachel, in this time frame, she did something, again, that was probably a lot of women wouldn't do. 9 months in, she says, Ike, I trust you. What? Our whole marriage, we were unstable at best. And pretty much I preferred to be in the back scene. So I didn't want to lead, AKA I didn't know how to. Neither did Rachel trust me to lead. So Rachel one day gets this revelation, if I don't allow Ike to lead, how can God ever coach Ike to lead? How can God teach Ike how to lead if I don't ever let him drive? And so one day, I remember like it was yesterday, we had this conversation. She's tearing up. I'm in shock. I'm like, I almost don't understand it because none of our marriage, I was actually leading. And so she says, Ike, I want you to lead. You lead our family spiritually. So here I am. Something in me, like the quarterback in me, was like, I have an opportunity not to be the quarterback on the field, but be the quarterback of my family. And I started trying to touch the hem of his garment. I started saying, hey, okay, God, you put this gift in me to play quarterback. That means as a quarterback, I need to know what everyone's doing at any given time. I got to be able to tell my wide receiver, hey, get on the line so we don't get a flag. I need to be able to quick snap. I need to be able to see the clock. We got 7 seconds and I still got to make it audible. He put that in me. I didn't just come up with that. So maybe, just maybe, God can use me to quarterback my family like he used me to quarterback a football team. And so I started thinking differently. Rachel gave me the keys. So here she is. I believed if God used Rachel to love me, how much more does God love me? So I got the revelation. You're my son. I'm pleased with you. Okay, so I got that in me. And we'll talk about what you texted me about the store. And I responded, which gave you, okay, Ike, maybe you are ready. I had that in me, like, okay, I haven't walked it out long. It's not like I got the resume that shows I'm qualified, but I got a couple things. First, God loves me because Rachel has stuck and stayed. Now Rachel's telling me to lead after 9 months to a year. Okay, now the third thing is like, okay, I know it's in me, but I haven't learned how to walk it out. So here it is. I got God. I got the greatest woman, the greatest woman that I think have walked the face of the earth, and my wife, Rachel. And so these two people, 3/4 strand, not easily broken. I got what I need to try to figure out how to lead my family. And so, and then I have Access Church. So I have the 3 principles that I think every man needs. You need a house, you need God, you need your wife, and you need accountability. And my accountability is reminding me of the greatest coach I've ever had, and that's my high school basketball coach, Coach Lewis. Coach Lewis sat all the starters in a championship high school basketball game. Caleb, it's the championship game we have never won, and we're sitting because we were all on time for the meeting. All the starters. We weren't early like we should have been. Coach told us to be there 15 minutes early. It's the championship game, and we did not start the championship game. So now I have a pastor who is saying, hey, I see that God's calling you, but I'm not interested in using you. And so what that did for me, it gave me the ability to focus on leading my family. Okay? We're going to be at church every Sunday. I'm going to create the atmosphere in my home. So we started praying with our kids every single night. We start praying with our kids. We're making dinner every single night. So because I'm not focused on ministry, I'm not focused on trying to be used by God. I'm not focused on if people at church are looking forward to me speaking. I don't really care about that because my church is saying, bro, we don't need you. And so that was hitting me differently.
Okay.
Did I do it perfectly? No, because I missed a discipleship group early on and I thought I was in trouble. And I'm texting Pastor Joel. So sorry, man. We're running late. Rachel and I, we woke up late. Excuse me. Because I thought I was in trouble. Well, that's performance. If you don't go to the second service and you think you're in trouble, you're living in performance 101. Just letting you know, right? If you don't make it to this so-and-so place because you want to stay home at night with your family, and now you're texting coach on the back end or pastor on the back end asking for forgiveness, it's probably because you've been operating out of performance, right? And that was me when I first got to Access Church. And so Pastor Joel says, hey, bro, if you don't come to these things, bro, we're not gonna kick your door down. You're fine. You're not in trouble. So they knew, based on my past, that I had performance all over me. They knew it. They could sense it. They could discern it. So it was these leaders in my life that said, okay, we have to steward Ike carefully. And so the first year, I served. I was in childcare. I did it with a genuine heart. It wasn't like this secret motive, like, I hope God, I don't care. Even to this day, I've been there for 4 years. If they never asked me to preach, Caleb, bro, I could really care less. This is the honest truth. I don't desire to speak at my church. And I believe because my purpose is these kids knowing that Jesus is alive, he's good, and without him, you got nothing.
So when I'm trying to process that, when in that journey do you end up with Nate at the furniture store? Because it's starting to all click for me now.
Yeah. So
had you already walked through this season with Access Church for a while and figured out your identity and been serving?
Yes.
And that's when, okay, because you
Correct.
were different when we finally talked again.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm working at, Rachel's working at Pathways. We're in the thick of COVID. I'm working at a place called DivCon, which is it's a concrete manufacturing company.
Yeah.
So they built Amazon FedEx extensions for Gonzaga. And it's important, this place, because how can I say this? I was kind of overqualified for this job, but I didn't see it that way. So I had a tool belt from Walmart, a hammer from Walmart, work boots from Walmart, and I was the happiest employer that they have ever seen. I would show up early. I would stay late. It's because what was happening to me at church, I was learning that my value wasn't in what I was doing, that I had my value. This company doesn't define me, whether I can build the side of Gonzaga or not, which every other job did. So I was already God was already training and developing my character to say, okay, I'm showing up early, I'm staying late, everything is good. We're still having up and down days in my marriage, but those up and down days aren't defining my value. So I'm starting to learn. And so Nate calls and says, bro, the people that I sold my business to are no longer paying me. I need to either sue them or get my store back. I don't want to sue them because he was talking to you. And he says, bro, there's a right way to handle this. Let's handle it the right way. So Nate says, can you and Rachel come help me liquidate the furniture store? I'm going to come from Texas. I'm going to come to Spokane. We can liquidate the store. So that's when furniture, I was never to sell furniture again. I wasn't thinking about furniture. I didn't desire selling furniture. Nate calls. We end up at Furniture Outpost. Nate has his store back, and here we are. Rachel got let go from a place that she was working for 10 years. She worked through COVID for 3 years. She tested everyone every Monday, wore a mask, and her company let her go. So Rachel is collecting unemployment. I'm working at DivCon. I take a week off of work. Rachel and I meet Nate at the store, and the first conversation is liquidation of Furniture Outpost. That's how furniture came into existence.
Okay, because I get in the middle of that because I know all parties involved, and I'm like, the Bible's super clear about suing your brother, and so we're having sit down conversations. You guys are showing up to it, and I got to be honest with you, I wasn't sure about, because we hadn't talked for a while, and I wasn't sure about you guys taking over the store, because you guys were liquidating it, but then you got excited about it. Then you guys got into it. And then you and Rachel with your gifting started seeing ways that we could grow the company. And so all of a sudden the conversation shifted from, hey, should we liquidate this? Hey, we could do this. We could take this over. But my concern was, hey, if Ike is struggling with performance-based so much, running a company is challenging. And if you get into a company and you're coming out of COVID with furniture and the tariffs and all this stuff, and I'm like, everything's stacked against you in the furniture game. And I go, if he gets into this and he puts a bunch of money into this and it falls apart, I was like, that might be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So I was actually really concerned about you in your season of life jumping in and running a company and not just being an employee and not just being an amazing father and being in that season of life you were in. Yeah. And I think part of it is because, one, you're gifted, and that's why everywhere you go, people always give you a platform. But then at the same time, what I found was the store actually gave you purpose. And I think in leadership, that's a hard thing for a lot of people to know. Hey, when am I giving somebody too much and they're going to get into performance-based just to be loved? And when is giving them something, giving them purpose and dignity and something to go for? And I remember the conversations that I was just really upfront with you because we've just always had that relationship. Right. And your answer back to me made me go, okay, I think you really, because normally I would say something like that and I would call your bluff and you'd be like, all right. This time you were like, nah, man, that's not how I am anymore. That's not how this is going to go. Right. And you proved it out. And God bless the company, and your marriage is amazing, and your relationship with your kids are, and your identity is not wrapped up in the store.
Right.
But because of that, he's just blessing it. And this has been years of walking this out, and years of still going to the same church, and years of being sober, and years of your marriage growing. And so something definitely shifted and changed. And so in leadership, I mean, I guess for somebody that's trying to help people coming out of addiction, like, we're always going, how do I balance that? Like, when do I give somebody, if I give them too much, are they just going to do this out of performance so that they just feel like they're getting accepted versus when is it the time to really give somebody an opportunity to prove themselves? Right. And does that give them value?
This episode is brought to you by our friends at Be Bold for Jesus. If you've ever felt the urge to live out your faith more boldly, to step up and make an impact in your workplace, your church, or your community, this conference is for you. The Be Bold for Jesus conference is coming back to Spokane, Washington. It's a weekend packed with worship, encouragement, and practical tools to help you live out your faith confidently. You'll hear from incredible speakers who are living examples of what it means to be bold for Christ. Tickets are on sale now at BeBoldForJesus.org. That's BeBoldForJesus.org. Grab your tickets today and let's be bold together.
Man, so many. That's great. The questions, I'm going to try to break this down. First, I want to say, Caleb, I didn't have a lot of friends like you growing up that can actually look me in the eye or say, bro, this, you need to maybe second think about this, because so many of my friends were attached to what I can do. So many of my relations, not just friends, I'm talking grown men, coaches. And so what hit me about your question in terms of leaders, even us as parents, when do we hand it over? What hit me was King David. King David is anointed king way before he becomes king. King David had to be faithful in tilling the sheep. And so in my life, whenever I had a leader in my life, but they never witnessed me tilling the sheep, it never ended well.
Okay.
It never ended well. So the advice I would give to someone in a situation where they're like, I don't know if he would go into performance mode because he's fresh out of this, but I don't want to hold him back because he may end up going into addiction anyway, because he feels like he's not accomplishing his purpose. I would say we have to err. Jim Anderson said, Ike, your gift will get you there, but only your character will keep you there. Your gift will get you there. If you're ever in a situation where you're even questioning someone in their not being able to, their character not being able to fulfill the requirement needed to do the thing, I would automatically pump the brakes. And what I mean by that is there's so much of life where they do that. They redshirt athletes. Well, why? Most 90% of football players redshirt, no matter how good they are in high school, right? Why? Because that 1 year gives them the ability to get bigger, get faster, get stronger, and learn the playbook. Jesus and the disciples, 3 years, follow me. Why? Because 3 years, I want you to learn how to do life. There's some things that I can't teach you got to catch. I said it was important you asked me about how we came into existence of the furniture store. I worked at DivCon. DivCon taught me how to find my value in something other than what I was doing. So DivCon for me was the David tilling the sheep. So, and then that connection was Access Church. So
Right.
Access Church said, you may think you're a king, but you actually don't have what it takes to lead your family yet. So they're really big on Timothy 2, 2 Timothy 2.
Okay.
It's like, hey man, if you're gonna lead anybody, you gotta know how to follow. You gotta know how to submit. You gotta know how to serve and give, not in the capacity where you're holding the mic, but you gotta learn how to serve in the unseen areas. That's what David did. So God knew enough about David's character that David needed to be faithful in where people weren't watching him. DivCon was the most challenging job that I've ever had, and nobody was cheering for me.
Sure.
Not even Rachel. She didn't care that I was coming home full of concrete, exhausted. They're giving me raises, but she didn't care nothing about that. We're still early on in trying to figure out
Building trust back.
building trust.
Yeah.
But she knew this guy is waking up exhausted every day. He keeps telling me, okay, this is a portion, but not his portion. Kept telling Rachel, God's showing me this is a portion, but not our portion. So I stayed faithful. My wife is collecting unemployment. So I was asking the boss man, hey, is there any more hours you can give me? My wife, and he said, Ike, man, you're asking, okay, just come a little early. You can stay a little late. And so I was in this season when nobody was cheering me on. I was wearing a safety vest, boots that were from Walmart. And if you got boots from Walmart, it's okay. That's how I started. But I had gratitude. And so to answer your question in terms of when to move someone in a position in leading, are they leading themselves? Are they leading their family? And those, we didn't get the store until God, I was already doing these things, at a really low level. And God had already showed me that he loved me, that he forgave me. And Rachel already showed me that. So the store was one of those things where if it fails, I can go back to working 9 to 5.
Okay.
It wasn't,
Yeah.
I didn't
That's
see
what
it
that's
as,
what got me when you told me, like, listen,
yeah.
this
And
isn't
to
my
give some people
identity.
the perspective,
Yeah.
Caleb told me, he wrote me a message. We had a big conversation. He said, bro, you need to really slow down and think about this. Like, what if you can't pay the bills? And that's a big thing in marriage, by the way. So, and Rachel runs all the bills. So what if like that is one of the ones people get divorced over finances? So you're just coming to me like a brother, like, bro, what if this doesn't work out? What if the pressure's too much for you to follow through with this business? And I remember reading that, and I read it early in the morning, and something hit me. And it was the Spirit of God. And all I told Caleb in return was, I'm not who I used to be. And what I meant was, I don't have to respond how I normally always respond. And that was running. Because I've seen every man in my family run. My dad had 3 kids, 3 kids in 3 years, and he left. He saw responsibility that would ruin his life, so he left. That's what men believed. I didn't sign up to raise these kids. These kids are taking over my life. I'm out of here. That's what I started believing about marriage. This is mundane. Who wakes up every day just to love the same woman? I didn't have anything outside of that scope. And so when you messaged me, it made me ask myself, am I doing this, or is God going to do it through me? And if this is going to be his business, he's in charge to bring the increase. That's the revelation we had. And it was other people in my life. We had Dallas, who works at my church. He said, Ike, you need to write out the pros and cons. And normally when someone does that, they write out the pros, they write out the cons, and they what? If the cons outweigh the pros, they say this is not right timing. So I thought he was going to say that to me. His name's Dallas. He said, Ike, you need to write out the pros and cons. I wrote out the pros and cons. The cons outweighed the pros. He said, give the cons to God. He says, pros and cons are not meant to stop you, especially in a position like this, Caleb. So it was a rare position, bro. We bought the business for next to nothing. And so it wasn't like we were putting ourselves in this position that would drain our savings, or it was a miracle how we got the money to pay my friend. But it wasn't like we were signing up for a $500,000 loan that we're locked in for 10 years and we got to figure out how to pay $6,000 a month, no matter if we're selling furniture or not. Yeah. And so I think a lot of that played into it, but mainly Rachel believed. She asked me to lead way before we had a furniture store. So I was getting acclimated with trusting God that, okay, a lot of what we do now, you may look at your podcast, or people may look at you like, okay, Caleb, how are you doing this? And a lot of it is he's giving you the ability and the gift and the purpose. But a lot of it is him. He's given me the vision for marketing. He's given me the vision to connect in our community. I have a story. So we partnered with 16 rehabilitation centers in Spokane. My wife worked at Pathways for 12 years. We work with people with mental disabilities, single moms, single dads. It's up her vein. She lives to help people. And so that was all God saying, hey, I'm not going to get you to do something that you don't love or you don't have an eye for. And so that's kind of the pressure. And it is pressure, but it's a different pressure. It's like the pressure Patrick Mahomes has. It's the fourth quarter. He's down by 6. It's 45 seconds. And he's like, okay, I've been here before. Yeah. And even if I don't lose, even if we don't score a touchdown, I'm in the Super Bowl. It's going to be okay. And so I started feeling like that. Like, man, God has done so much. If this doesn't work out, it means he has something else.
Yeah, and I think when you were talking to us about it, one, Nate had spent a lot of time with you. So Nate was calling me on the back end. I was like, bro, is this, where is he at? This is what I'm concerned about. Nate's like, now we'll set it up in a way that if it doesn't work, we're not going to let, Rachel's family fall apart. Ike and Rachel's family fall apart. And so that even the first year, the structuring of the rent, and if it didn't work out, it wasn't on you. Like that was all kind of systematically set up because we just wanted to make sure you guys were good and you continued on growing as a father, because that was what we always heard from you, was that was your biggest heart, is you just wanted to be an amazing husband and an amazing father. And you're crushing it at that. How does that feel to be able to look yourself in the mirror and respect yourself for being a good dad?
We work with a lot of families that were in our position, and we actually took in 2 foster kids, and we had them for a year, and their parents were heavily in addiction. And so when people ask me, like, what has been the deciding factor to not have you go backwards? Why haven't you thrown in the towel? What drives you? Other than my relationship with like Jesus and that being like obviously my sole source of being able to function how I function, the greatest purpose I have is being the very thing I never seen. And the greatest thing, the very thing I never seen, but the greatest purpose I desired. That's why I wanted to get married early. Above everything, I was like, man, I want a family that I can lead and love, right? Because my family they were broken. They were in need of God, like desperate restoration from my grandmother on down. And so now I get to look at my kids, and any kids at that rate, like the 2 foster kids. It's like, we weren't really set up to take on 2 foster kids and we had 3 hours to decide. It's not like we had a couple of years to see and get set up. The state called and said, we got 2 foster kids. They're going to be split up, and you're the last option. You want to take them? Because you got 3 hours to decide. So those kids changed our lives. But here it is. God has a sense of humor because he knew that we had what those kids needed, but it was one point that we didn't have we didn't have what it took to lead these kids. And so to answer your question, man, you know what really gets me like full of joy? Seeing Rachel. There's nothing better. There's nothing better than knowing that this woman, Proverbs talks about it, don't quote me, but the Bible says the wife will make her husband known in the city because she trusts him. The fact that Rachel trusts me, there's nothing else I need. There's not another stadium. There's not another platform. The fact that Rachel waited all this time to say, I'd rather have Ike out of treatment and be a 3 out of 10 and work with him and love him and see him become a 4 and see him become a 5 and see him become a 6. The fact that I get to see her now and have God so strategic to transform me so she can see the fruit of her labor, there's nothing else. There's nothing else I can see that's better. It's not an amount of money. There's not a platform. There's nothing that I can see more fulfilling than seeing my wife full of joy and my kids not know a father that's in and out, a father that yells at them every chance he gets, a father that is inconsistent at best, a father that sees their kids as a tool to find fulfillment. Our kids are good in sports, but I could care less if they ever play sports, and I tell them all the time. My son says he's like Stephen Curry shooting the ball. I say, yes, you are, but if you never become him, guess what? That doesn't define you. So I know what, and I don't do it perfectly, but I know what not to set my kids up for. Their identity has to be in Jesus because that's the only way they're going to find fulfillment. And so the fact that I have that understanding, because I lived it, I had women, I had alcohol, I had money, I had anything I needed, and I was completely empty, tried to commit suicide at 22. That is not fulfilling. And we see it every day where people have it all, but yet they got nothing. What's the man that gain his world and lose his soul? That's my life. And so now to be on the other side of that and to know it's because Rachel made a choice in the most hostile, up against the odds situation, she chose to trust God. I can't wait to read her book. I can't wait to see from her point of view what it actually took.
Yeah. And I think that'll be a fun conversation that we have with her at some point when it's the right time, because it is a very unique perspective, and I think it is going to be exciting to hear. A couple of things before we wrap up. So you actually spent time in the strip club that we purchased and are turning into the Freedom Center. What was it like to be in the news of redeeming a place that you used to frequent? Like that was always interesting to me.
You know, at first, I'm not gonna lie. At first, I was hesitant going into, it was like an all men's night.
The revival night.
The revival nights where, I mean, packed out, men, us obviously not knowing each other's stories, but that was a place where when I would get under the influence, I would go there. And I didn't live far. I lived right on Sprague and Thurman, so I could literally walk there. And so to see God have the audacity to give me this option to walk back in there, not under the influence, not to throw money at a broken girl, not to try to find a sense of relief from my absolute depravity, was an absolute blessing. Like, I cried the entire time. I'm like, man. And I know there was men in there. They came up to me and said, bro, I'm so glad you're here. They know my story. They know, they just know it. And these are men that some knew me closely, but some only could watch from a distance. I think about Cutlip. I think I'm saying his name right.
Yeah.
Right. He came up to me that night. It's like, man, I'm just so proud of you. Like he knows the debris of my story, right? It's like, oh, he used to do a marriage group when we were all at Victory Faith. And so to see men like that, Pastor Joe, who gave me a prophetic word when I was in Master's Commission, to see him there and see him get to witness the other side of my life, I think it's so refreshing. Have people like Jim Anderson, yourself included, like to want to be a part of my life still, a part of the redemptive aspect, to know there's a ministry in Spokane that cares about turning the hearts of the father back to their kids, but also bringing women out of depravity. Like, our city has nude coffee shops that I've been at. Yeah. And the first time I went there was a mistake. It was a true accident, because it said Devil's Brew. I'm thinking just strong coffee. If this is Devil's Brew, it must be some strong coffee. I need some strong coffee. And I get up to the window, and the lady has no clothes on. And I'm like, but what that planted in my mind was, if I ever feel weak, I can just pop up over here, right? People in addiction, I didn't wake up thinking that I want to ruin my family, leave my wife, abandon my kids. These people on the streets that are drinking themselves into comas every night, these women that are being human trafficked, they didn't start off like that. And so the fact that we have, helping captives and stuff, and that night is forever printed in my mind, because that's what it's about. I think that's God's heart. That's his heart for the single person. That's his heart for marriage. That's his heart for putting orphans into families. That's what he's doing here in Spokane. People raised without fathers. And if you're a dad and you weren't a good dad, it's not too late. Man, he turned it around for me. Like, literally, I didn't have a dad. I didn't have an uncle that was a dad, let alone my own dad. I didn't have a man in a phone call away that I could say, can you give me some advice here? I love my dad to death. His greatest advice to me was, hey, drink non-alcoholic beer at the bar. Because he thought, like, okay, if you're drinking too much, you still can be at the scene, right? I love him to death. We go fishing, we smile, but he would tell you himself, I wasn't in a position to give you the counsel that you needed. And I apologize for that. I mean, he repented to me for that. And so I just think it's cool that that's where he lives, by the way. Like he lives in these redemptive story, and he's given us the ministry of reconciliation. This is the only ministry in the Bible. I got my marriage ministry, but it's that ministry of reconciliation, and to the fact that you guys, that my wife, my family, we're involved in what God is doing in Spokane. I think that's tremendous, because I would have never thought I would walk in a strip club and then be for that reason.
Yeah, I just remember you coming up to me and talking to me about how much it had impacted you. And then I think the news even did a story on you on the newspaper about it. And I was like, that's pretty cool. What do you think for somebody that wants to be a father, that doesn't know how to be a dad, or somebody that's coming out of addiction, how important is church? How important is community?
Yeah.
And let's talk about Jim Anderson for a little bit, because you brought him up like 37 times. So, and I love Papa Jim. So the role of church and community, how important is that? And the role of mentors, how important is that? And what's the most important thing Jim Anderson ever told you?
Jim was the first father figure that I knew in this side of the West, because he came to our master's commission. Jim Anderson spent 7 days there. He handed me a index card at my master's commission. He said, hey, I want you to write everything the Lord tells you to write on here. I said, okay. So I wrote down everything except the one thing. And I gave it back to him. And the next day he said, hey, there's one thing not on here. And I just started weeping. And I told him, he was the first person I told about molestation. I'm 26 years old. I got molested at 6 years old. So 20 years, I was taking that to the grave. And it was the very thing that I feared, if people knew, they would abandon me. And I already felt abandoned. So why would I ever share that with anyone? So I didn't until I met Jim Anderson. And so two things. The first thing Jim ever told me, the most powerful thing, and if you're a dad and you're just getting out of addiction, or you're struggling, or you're trying to figure out how to get back in the swing of life, the greatest thing I've ever heard, and it came from Jim Anderson, he said, Ike, you're a 3. I thought that was going to be a sentiment thing, but no, he said, Ike, you are a 3.
I was not ready for that.
No, you're good. He said, be the best 3 you can be.
Wow.
He said, man, you being the best 3 you can be is enough. He said, nobody ever went from 3 to 10. I said, man, nobody goes from 3 to 10 in this walk of life. They don't. So if you're listening, you want to be an influencer, you don't go from 3 to 10. You want to be a pastor, you want to be a dad, you want to be a business owner. You don't go from 3 to 10. If you go from 3 to 10, you're taking shortcuts, and it's not going to last. He said, I be the best 3. So I focused on being the best 3.
Yeah.
I just did what I can do that day. I wasn't looking for Rachel to tell me I was a 10. I gave her room to say, Ike, you're a 3. You're my man, and you're a 3, and you're the best 3. And then I became a 4. What does that look like, man? All I can do is go to work and come back. I wasn't helping with cleaning. I wasn't taking the trash out. Being a faithful man that worked every day was enough. I wasn't intimate with my kids. I wasn't taking my daughter on dates. I wasn't. I was too nervous, too insecure. So I focused on things that was feeding me. And at the time, it was work. I was the best 3. Then I became a 4. I started helping out I started learning, if I can take this off of Rachel's plate, man, it's going to make her more active and maybe focus on our kids more. Then it became a 5. And now I'm working, I'm taking the trash out, and I'm praying with the kids at night. But it's not too much pressure. And Rachel's not saying, why aren't you praying with the kids? Why didn't you do this? So because of Jim's understanding of not just me being a 3, but you got to let him be a 3, Rachel. Rachel, let him be a 3. Come on, don't expect him to be a 10. Now I'm a 6. So now I'm helping out And now I'm saying, hey, Rachel, I got to be at church a little early today because I got to help out with kids and I got to be there early. And so now I'm taking my kids, instead of leaving them at home with Rachel, I'm getting them dressed. And now they're in my car and I got the car seat, not just the seat belt. And I got to admit, sometimes I throw them in the car, but I try to get the car seat in there with the seat belt. And so that's the advice. And you find out we never get to a 10, never even really a 9, because the closer we get to God, we see our need for God. So I'm not like this polished 8. I'm like, man, some days, Caleb, I forget that I had a coffee date at 8 o'clock in the morning. And guess what? I got to go repent. I got to say, forgive me. That is what being a 7.5, an 8 is about. It's not about perfection. It's about, man, if I make a mistake, I'm owning up to that mistake. If I got a sever in my relationship with a friend, I'm the first one saying, hey, bro, what's up? I feel that I may have did something that offended you. Did I? Let's talk about it. And so that's my greatest piece of advice that was given to me. And then secondly, some may agree, some may not. I am 100% about me and my house. Me and my family, we're going to serve the Lord. That means we're going to be in the house of God. There's nothing else more important. And because the house of God is not just going to a place on Sunday, it's building a relationship with people that you give permission to now to hold you accountable because they see you every Sunday. If you're in and out of church or you're changing churches every 2 months, nobody's going to know you. Therefore, if they don't know you, how are they going to hold you accountable? Because the context of relationship is accountability. Because I'm asking you, hey, Caleb, you told me to come here at 2 o'clock and you're not here. What's up? The fact that I'm holding you accountable gives you a right to hold me accountable. And that's what I receive in church. It's not just about Sunday and receiving. It's about serving. And if you're serving, even if it's kids or cleaning or ushering, you got to be accountable. Because there's someone over the ushers that are saying, man, Ike is always late and Ike is trying to do what he wants. Even at my church right now, I'm on a team that does transition. Guess what? There's a pastor over. So what does that mean? I can't just go up and do transition how I want. So I'm at a church that has leaders. These leaders we have to submit to. Well, where does that help me out? It helps me out in the context of my wife and I, raising my kids. And so that's why church is important. That's why God wants us to go to church. It's not just because he's trying to control us. It's 2 hours out of, God, I wish I was good at math, however many hours is in a week. It's 2 hours. And so that is how Rachel and I have blossomed, not just survived. Because guess what? Our leaders hold us accountable. And it's not always pretty. It's not always pretty.
If you had one thing that you would tell a younger Ike, let's say high school Ike, what would you tell him if young Ike was listening right now?
If young Ike was listening, I would tell him what he does is less important than who he is. And it's the hardest thing to learn. I mean, we're still learning that, right? And
I
what
think
he
especially for guys because we
does
get our value met.
is less important. It's not that it's not important, because God calls men to do things. And so it's not be on the couch and be a potato. He calls us to do things. But what I'm doing is less important than who I am. I think that's the greatest thing I can tell a young Ike. Man, Ike, you may become this and you may not. You may get taken out, your knee gets severed, and you can no longer play that thing or do that thing, or something happens in your throat, you can no longer speak, whatever the deal is. And so I think that's what I want my kids to know. That's what I want my wife to know. That's what I want the closest friends to know, is let what you do be less important than who you are. And the way you find your identity is through Christ. And he has a way of making us feel, believe, and understand that we do have what it takes and we are enough. Because the value he put on us is his son. that makes me valuable. And it's not because I have everything together or I have the greatest marketing strategy for our business. It's not, has nothing to do with that. I'm valuable because Jesus decided to give his only son for me in hopes that I would choose him. So that's what I would tell that young man. It's like, hey man, be all you can be and do your best. Don't be lazy. Give your best. Put your best foot forward, man. Do it as best as you can and leave the results to God. Because trust me, if you are aligned with God, you're gonna do exactly what he wants you to do. You're not gonna have to try to fit a square in a circle hole, man. You're not. And that's what we're living out through the grace of God right now. We never thought we would. I never thought I would be so joyful even when things don't go right. And it's only because of God and the revelation of, at the end of the day, it's about people.
Yeah.
And if I'm not using what I have to impact people, I'll be on the top of the mountain with all my money, all the sectionals I sold, empty. So no one else is up there, by the way. Jesus came off that mountain and he met people where they were at. And so that's what helps Rachel and I think the authenticity of the struggle that we went through keeps us relevant and in place to help people. So young man, young father, young kid, if you're striving to be something you're not, it's not bad that you're striving. It's only bad when you think that once you get there, you'll be fulfilled. Because the value is actually in who you're becoming while you're striving. Because that's where God lives. He wants to see our character and he wants to build that. So when he's building that, he's only taking us through these trials and tests and tribulations because he wants us to be able to sustain eventually where he takes us.
One of the things that was really cool for me to watch this year, obviously one of our sponsors is Be Bold for Jesus, the conference. And I remember a couple of years ago, you called me and you're like, hey, I want to get coffee. Let's go to the garden. And you were asked to speak at the youth conference of Be Bold for Jesus. And this year, though, you were asked to speak on the main stage. And I thought it was so cool to see your family show up and support you, and to see their face when they walked into the conference, because now that you've laid that down and you're just like, my value is based on who I am, not what I do. It's cool to see God just opening doors, because it's not where you get your identity made. And this conference had like 8,000 people at it. And to see your mom walk through the door and realize like, oh my goodness, my son's about to do this. And I think your dad flew in and your family was there. What was that like for you?
Yeah.
To be able to share this story with them present and share the gospel with people?
You know, I said earlier, God is just, in the way he's just like a master, right? My mom, more than my dad, when I got let go from Virginia Tech, my freshman year, I got suspended. I had to go home. And I don't know about you, but I got spanked growing up. Like my mom spanked me.
Yeah, bro.
She wasn't messing around. Single mom.
Yeah.
Whatever was closest to her, she was grabbing it. Yeah. When I went back home at 19
My mom would
years
grab a
old,
broom, bro, because she's in a wheelchair. So what we would do is we would get in the center bed, because she had her medical bed and then my dad's bed. They pushed it together, right? And so it created a huge, like, massive California King style bed. So we would jump up on the bed and she'd roll to the other side. We run to the other side. And then she'd roll the other side. Yeah. So she started getting a broom and just smacked us off the bed and started smacking us with a broom.
Yeah.
So yeah, bro, I got hacked.
I mentioned that because when I went back home from the suspension, I'd never seen my mom so hurt. She wasn't mad. She was hurt. There's a difference.
Yeah.
Right? She was hurt. She was crushed because she saw her son at 19 years old without any, I had no fight. There was nothing I can say. Here I am on ESPN, looked at as the worst college football player, the biggest bust ever. How does she go to work the next day? It wasn't like people didn't know me. It's the third-ranked quarterback in the country.
And she's working 2 or 3 jobs. She's praying for you, taking you to church. Like, she's doing everything she can.
And so now we're 18 years later. She walks into something that feels like a football stadium, but it's not, right? And she's witnessing not what we did, meaning my mom, my dad, me, my coaches, right? The amount of money she spent on training and just the time we spent on Ike becoming an NFL quarterback. That's what my family anchored in. Ike is going to be the one. He's going to do it for us. And he's got the talent. He's got the ability. He has the size. And it didn't work out. And I had family members separate from me. My father separate from me. It crushed me. And to see my mom walking there, my dad walking there, and it had nothing to do with my skills and abilities, honestly. It had to do with, man, God, I didn't know it was going to shape up like this, that you're giving Ike the opportunity from when he chose to make these choices that took him to the depths of brokenness. You are going to find a way to rescue him, save him, build him, and take him to a place like this where I could fly my family in and them see a similar experience, but a more meaningful transaction is speechless. Only God can do that. And my mom, when I spoke, she wept and she had to leave. She had 100 people waiting to talk to her because I wanted to honor her, because she was the first person who visited me in the hospital when I tried to commit suicide. And she said, Ike, you're a man of God. And I said, there's no way. I'm at the hospital because I tried to commit suicide. But what she saw was that day. She saw Be Bold for Jesus, me speaking to people about my story in the hospital when I was 22 years old. She saw her son, one day, God restoring his life. Yeah. That's what she saw. And that's where she uncontrollably wept. And so, Rachel, she wanted my family to see this side of Ike because they're in Maryland and Indiana. So they don't know that they haven't even seen the store. My dad didn't see the store with his last name. That Whitaker is from him. He didn't see our store. So he came. He sees it on pictures. He sees it there. But for him to see the store and to walk through it, it's like his faith since Be Bold for Jesus has transformed. He was far from God. He grew up in church, leader, got hurt, walked away from God, haven't been the same since. His heart, because he sees the workings of God. It's not the people we influence in the masses. He saw the kids coming up to me saying, hey, the parents and couples coming up to Rachel and I, and us stopping to talk for 5 or 10 minutes. That's what blew his mind away. Mm-hmm. So he said, they're not coming to say, sign my jersey because you threw a touchdown or you're the backup quarterback. Because even as a backup, I was signing jerseys. It was like, hey, you put your life in, you put Jesus in charge of your life. Can you tell me about that? So here it is. My dad is witnessing the hand of God move through still very much a broken vessel. Like, I'm just like, God, here I am. My yes is my yes. Here I am. And anything I do, I run it by my pastor. And quick story in closing in terms of your question. Brett, and I want to say him, whether he ever watches this again, but he oversees FCA.
Yeah,
which
is fellowship. I'll text him. He'll watch it. Yeah,
which is Fellowship Christian Athletes.
Yeah, he's crushing it. I love what he's doing.
Yeah, and so Brett 2 years ago. He said, Ike, will you be interested in speaking at these high schools 2 Fridays a month? And it could be anywhere from 3 kids to 40 kids. I said, man, yes. I said, you could tell me the morning of at 6 a.m. I'll be there. I said, Brett, because you asked me to speak to athletes who play football or basketball or soccer or volleyball, and they're Christians. God sent you because God showed me that he would use my story in some capacity because I hated God. I said, God, you gave me this gift to play football. Well, you ain't helping me. You are not helping me. I'm drowning in alcoholism in college. So I hated God. And then God would tell me every time I would come through and get back on my feet, I'm going to use your story. And I didn't know how. And then Brett comes into my life in Spokane. He says, hey, can you come speak at these FCA, Fellowship Christian Athletes? And I'm like, Brett, man, I don't know if you know, but it was an FCA book that I got in college. My first Bible in college was by my Shannon. He was our chaplain. He gave me my first FCA book. So here it is, God's bringing FCA back into my life at a crucial time in my life to give me, and what God did says, Ike, I want to see if you're going to be faithful. I get there, man, be 1 kid there. Sometimes it'd be 40 kids there. But I made a commitment. I said, I'm going to go. And if it was 1 kid, I would talk with passion and fire. Man, your identity is in who you are, not what you do. You could be the greatest football player. I would tell them the truth. I would tell them the truth about my alcoholism, about my depravity, about me thinking that if I get the starting job, it would change everything. I'll never drink again. And did not get it. And I was drunk before I get to my car. Had beers in my locker. Drank them in the stall. Because if I was under the influence, I could sign autographs better. I can talk to people better. And so that was my life. And I would tell these kids. And I was faithful. And I say, Brett, every time I would speak, I say, man, I want to thank Brett for making this connection and not believe Brett was the one to say, hey, he was on the board for the youth, for Be Bold for Jesus. And he said, hey, man, you guys should think about Ike, right? He had no control if they were going to choose me or not. Yeah. But it was Brett. Well, guess what Brett saw for 2 years? Every Friday.
Consistency.
I was showing up with these kids. It wasn't posted. It wasn't talked about. Brett never said nothing, but hey. And it was the school who contacted me. So it wasn't even Brett. Yeah. Brett put me in a position. Brett was out of the story. And the school contacted me. Hey, we need you here at 6:30. Are you still available? All the way out in the country somewhere. So there I was. And everything in me, I was like, man, God, thank you. I get to share my story. Never thought about a Be Bold for Jesus. Never cared about speaking in front of.
You're just tending sheep.
Just tending the sheep.
Yeah.
And then when they called me and asked me to speak on the main stage, I literally have a video of me crying. Because I said, I got to talk to my pastor, but yes. I want to say yes, but I got to talk to my pastor first, but yes. Because I knew it was all God. And that's how he works. You know it.
You
just
didn't
like
kick
I
a
know
door
it.
down. God opened the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's man, that's my story. That's the journey. And anybody who signs up to go through the journey of building character is a keeper. Anybody who's like, I've been here for 6 months, Caleb, I need to be talking on the mic at Helping Captives. I need to be on the podcast. That's a guy that maybe he's going to be great, but right now you just you're able to measure, engage. We got to do it with employees. Bro, you've been here for 3 months. You want to be the manager.
Yeah.
I love your heart for wanting to be a manager, but a lot of managing is serving people. It's not actually calling the shots. A lot of ownership is serving people. It's not, these people don't know I'm the owner when they come in the store. I try to tie it in because they know they're going to get a deal. But I'm not like, my name is Ike, I'm the owner.
Yeah.
And so we learn as we go that leadership is about serving people. So when people understand that, a lot of them just think it's about what you're doing right now, but they don't know what it took.
The 18
God
years
told you to
before
wait.
I got the mic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just told me a story. You had to wait years before the podcast.
18 years before God finally said, yeah, I'll let you do this and write the book from the dream he gave me 18 years ago.
Yeah.
18 years of serving and be behind the scenes. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's...
But our heart was always, God, I don't want to, I've seen friends that their gifting got in front of their character. And our prayer was always, don't let me go farther than my character can handle.
Right.
Because that always terrified me. And I had a calling, got called into ministry at 18, but I didn't have the character. And it takes time, you know what I mean? And I think it's important for people to hear this message and hear what you actually had to lay it down and say, okay, God, I just want you to focus. I need to focus on me. I need to focus on just getting right with you. I need to realize my value. And it's so incredible. I think as we're wrapping up, talk to us about the furniture store, bro, because you have a passion for it.
Yeah.
And it's not really a furniture store. It's a ministry that happens to make money. And then you sell that money back into ministry and you're able to just lead your family and do some great stuff. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about what's the store called? Where is it located? How can people find you? And then I got one last question for you at the end.
Whitaker Family Furniture is 2801 North Monroe Street. We're family owned and community driven. And it's been an absolute delight not being able to actually just sell furniture like you said. Like, man, it is so much about people. You know, I had a job at Rogers High School once, and after about 6 months, I wanted to skip class just as much as the kids because I was like, man, I love kids. I love seeing them transform, but I know God created me to get into the nitty gritty with families. And that's what we get to do at Whitaker Family Furniture. And so our job, Rachel and I, we want to provide quality furniture that's going to last. But at the same time, we're meeting people from all walks of life that have stories, that have backgrounds, that we know God. We trust that God is sending them to our store. Not that they're coming in, they may see an ad, they may see this, and that's all great, but we trust that every person that comes into our store, they're family. And we market one visit makes you family. Because whether you buy or not, you're family. And family knows stuff about family. And so I think just in the community-driven part, family-owned, community-driven, we believe that God's heart for our community is to raise up healthy families. So if we want to stop human trafficking, if we want to stop drugs and alcohol and the way the homeless is in our streets and fatherlessness, it starts with the family, right? Mm-hmm. You guys just heard my story. So I came from a broken home, and that came with a lot of brokenness. And so it took me 20 years to try to figure out all the entanglement that was inside my life. And we don't want it to take 20 years for people. It doesn't have to take 20 years for people. And so we want to be in people's lives, right? That's why we still partner with Helping Captives, the Fatherhood Initiative, Speak Up, Speak Out, Revive Reentry, the Union Gospel Mission, Goodwill. Like these are organizations that have already done. I don't need to try to figure out how to save women from human trafficking. I need to figure out how to help Caleb continue to do what he's doing. And the Fatherhood Initiative and local stores, local families. Why shop local? Because you're going to get the best experience all the time. You're going to call a store, you're going to hear from Rachel, from myself, from Sargi, our operations manager, and we know you're human. So what does that mean? That means sometimes you run into a crux financially and you can no longer afford your payments. What's that mean? When you call us, we're going to work with you, right? And so there's all these things that you gain when you shop local, but you also get us being genuine. It's not about what we can get, it's about what we can give, because God gave us the business. So we understand, man, if I start trying to rob people, if I start trying to get every cent from every customer and try to max them out, God's going to close that door, man, and the blessings from heaven will shut. And I've seen it happen over my personal life when I try to live like this, but say God's in it. And so we want to keep the floodgates of heaven open. And the word God gave me when he gave us the business, he says, Ike, I cut costs 80% for you to buy that business. Take care of people. Mm-hmm. And if it's a God business, I'm in charge to bring the increase. And so if you are in the market for furniture, man, it's not just furniture, but we sure do sell quality furniture at an affordable price. And we would love to make you family. And it's fun. We got a bouncy castle. We got basketball hoops. It's not just an experience for you as an adults buying the furniture, but we want to take care of your
You
kids
had a
as well.
30-foot gorilla.
Yeah. We had a 30-foot gorilla.
Yeah, that I let you borrow, and it got
Man,
tore
that thing
up
got tore
in
up. We
the
left it
winter.
on the roof.
Okay, last question. Prime Ike, no alcohol, no drugs, protein powder, creatine. You're on one side, Tim Tebow's on the other side. This is not an event drop. We'll do that later. Who's walking away with that W?
We are. We're walking away with the W. Man, I honor, respect Tim Tebow. I read the first book he wrote, Through My Eyes Only. And man, Tim and I, our style was different. He's got 25, 30 pounds of per muscle on him than I do.
Bro, I was at an event and he was golfing. It looked like Donkey Kong swinging a club. He is built different.
Yeah, but one thing, man, I think being around the leaders I'm around, they never feel less than being around greater talent. And that's one thing. It's like, man, there's something about Tim Tebow that I still aspire to have. Man, he's dynamic. He's a great communicator, and he's full of Jesus. He's full of the Holy Spirit. And you know when you encounter Tim Tebow, you're going to encounter the Lord. And so when I was really watching him early in his career, he had so much Jesus, people were sick and tired of it. But guess what? They were talking about Jesus on ESPN more than they ever talked about Jesus before. And so I think something that is great about Tim Tebow that I want to continue to develop is he knows his purpose. And so that's why we are, I would say, dynamic at Whitaker Family Furniture, because we're not shopping other stores to see what they're doing, because that puts you behind the ball. Man, we're going to heaven saying, God, what do you got for us? How can we make our marketing exciting? How can we be genuine? How can we be ourselves? Because he's given us a purpose, and it's not going to work if we're trying to find out how to do their purpose. So Tim Tebow, man, I love the fact that he knows what his purpose is. No different than you, man. You haven't shied away from being outside the four walls. Not that you are against church, or you don't love church, or, man, if you do anything other than what God's called you to do, man, you'll be short of what you're supposed to do. And so I admire men that get a call from God and get people around them that can actually help them fulfill that. And your dad was one of those people. Yeah. Randy, I mean, this guy to this day, he used to tell me the most hardest things that I've ever heard in my life. Like, Rachel will leave and she will call someone else husband, and those kids will call someone else father. And still to this day, it tears me up, because that's the truth. Life goes on without Ike. If I don't choose God, it's over eventually. And he would tell me these things, like he would be hitting me.
And literally with boxing gloves too.
He would be hitting me to soften up it was almost like, as he hit me, my, what do you call this? Not protection, but my guard would go down.
Yeah.
And then he knew when to swing those hard punches of, not necessarily my time will run out, but I need to choose God. Not choose these things that I think I want.
He's real good at loving people, caring about people, and then telling them the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what's in you, and a lot of what our ministry, that's what people need. I mean, even the women, I'm sure you can go into that, like, about what women need. They need, like, truth and things like that. So,
brother, love you.
Yeah.
Proud of you. I think you're an amazing father. I'm really proud of what you guys have been able to accomplish, but I think more importantly than that, I'm proud of just who you've become on the inside, and that you're finding your identity based on who God called you to be, not on what you do.
Yeah.
And you can see the peace of God on you and the joy of God on you because of that. And it was a great day for me to be sitting with my wife, Sarah, to get that pushback on that text message, to go, oh, okay, I think he's really changed. Yeah. So it's been fun to watch the journey. And I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be impacted by this message. And so I thank you for the courage to be able to come on here and talk. the courage to be honest about you being sexually abused. 1 out of 5 guys is sexually abused by the time they're 18. Just to be honest with what happened, that takes courage, especially for men to talk about that. And so I just want to honor you for that. I'm excited to cheer you on, excited to see what God continues to do in your life. But more importantly, I'm excited that you and Rachel are still married and that your kids are going to know what a healthy home is.
Yeah.
And that lights me up, bro.
Yeah.
Love
Thank you, man. Thank you for just the friend you are, bro. I mean, outside cameras, you've been, I'm sure everybody could contest, just like a faithful friend. Like, man, you didn't have to meet with me at the coffee shop to try to give me what I should talk to these youth about, but it was the very thing I needed. I didn't know, what do I share, what don't I share? Like, it's not just, you're not a friend that just wants to be a part of the positive outcome, but you're in the trenches. And I think we all need those, but to have someone like that in your life is rare these days, where someone actually values you as a person, where they're willing to tell you the truth. Many times, man, you walked in my apartment and you said, what the heck are you doing? Like, you're starting a blog now, Ike? You just sober 5 days and you're putting stuff on social media? Like, no one ever talked to me like that. Like, those are the things I've never forgotten. And when I need help, I go to the people that held me accountable and told me the truth when I was struggling. And in closing, one of the greatest things I heard from a counselor, if there's manifestations of addictions or people living in a certain way, so much about secular recovery is about focusing on what not to do. Oh, don't drink, or don't do this, or don't do that. Or even sometimes in the Christian communities, it could be about what someone is doing. Oh, he's watching porn, or he's lying, he's cheating, or he's doing that. If we could focus on where the hurt started, we'll get a lot faster. We'll get a lot deeper with people a lot quicker. And I remember one of the first conversations you had with me, you said, Ike, my story is a lot like yours. And I'm like, did this guy play sports? But you were a figure in your high school, and you found your identity through people. And you said, man, I feel what you're going through. You still held me accountable. You still told me hard things, but you also related with me, because at that time, there was no one in my life that said, I know what you're going through. They all said, you should be different. Why aren't you? You kind of said, man, are you finding your way back home? And that, for me, 10 years ago, what helped me to say, man, you know what? Somebody understands that I'm not just trying to make Rachel mad, trying to leave my kids out in the dust, trying to make a whole church upset with me. Like, somebody sees that this guy's broken, and we can't just keep putting him in a spot to be broken all over again. He needs time to heal. He needs time away from these things. And you've seen that, and you've been consistently protecting me from that in your own way. And that, I believe, is what our pastors have done that has made me into the man that I am today. So thank you.
Yeah, bro. I love you, dog.
Yeah, I love you.
All right. Well, with that being said, I'm not crying. You're crying. I'm out.
I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I was really moved hearing the depth of Rachel's heart for Ike, her commitment to their covenant, even when everyone around her told her to walk away and get a divorce. And to be honest, she had every biblical reason to leave. But instead, God used her love to reveal the true love of Christ to Ike. And I loved Ike's vulnerability in sharing how he discovered that his value wasn't in what he accomplished, but in who he is. As men in general, I think that's something that many of us wrestle with. I know I do. Finding our identity in what we do instead of who we are in Jesus. And I thought his reminder about faithfulness was powerful too. Before God ever gave Ike influence or a platform, he called him to be faithful in the small things, and serving and healing and tending sheep. And the crazy part is, Ike's been on huge stages, spoken to crowds, played in front of tens of thousands of people, but it wasn't until he laid all that down and said, God, I just want to be healthy, that God began to trust him with a platform again, but this time with his identity rooted in Christ. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you next time on Transforming Communities.